coming. We'd ask you to please silence your cell phones and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When I was looking that way, I couldn't help but look at the research.
Again, thank everybody for coming out. Do we have nobody signed up for citizens' time, so do we have any amendments to the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go into the consent agenda. We have the minutes from the January 22nd, 2018 regular meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those meeting minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We also have the meeting minutes from February the 12th, 2018 regular meeting. Any additions or corrections to those meeting minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye.
And aye. That motion carries. Thank you. And we have a couple of special resolutions and recognitions. We'll start with Mr. Burgess with the Virginia School Board Appreciation Month.
City of Franklin School Board Appreciation Month, February 2018. Whereas the education of Virginia school-age children is the foundation upon which the economic, social, and intellectual capital of our state is built. And whereas locally elected and appointed school boards play an important and vital role in a representative democracy, and decisions made by local boards of education directly influence instruction in Virginia's public schools. And whereas these decisions affect the present and future lives of children and also set direction to prepare all students to be competitive in a local, state, national, and global 21st century knowledge economy. And whereas local school board members work with parents, businesses, education professionals, and other community members to create the educational vision we want for our students. And whereas this year's theme, Advancing Opportunities for All, reflects the top priority of local school board members as they advocate for public education with local, state, and federal leaders. And whereas School Board Appreciation Month provides an opportunity to build stronger relationships between the thousands of Virginians who champion the mission of public education and school board members. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Franklin City Council recognizes the contributions of the state's local school boards to the academic success of its public school students and expresses its sincerest recognition to the Franklin City School Board members for their focus on the well-being and achievement of children of the Franklin City School Division. And be it finally resolved, the Franklin City Council declares February 2018 as School Board Member Appreciation Month in the City of Franklin and encourages all citizens and community leaders to appropriately recognize our city's dedicated school board members. Signed, Mayor Frank M. Rabel.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt said resolution?
Move for adoption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye, that motion carries. Thank you very much. And we do appreciate the job our school board is doing for us. And do we have anybody to represent the school board? We'll make, well,
This is great.
and we have one more special recognition for a job well done and a retirement, I believe.
This is a resolution of appreciation to John D. Copeland. Whereas excuse me, John, Lee D. Copeland, I'm sorry. I knew a John Copeland once. Whereas Lee D. Copeland has faithfully served the city of Franklin and Southampton County for 21 years as a deputy code official from March 18, 1996, until retiring on December 31, 2017. And whereas Lee D. Copeland diligently delivered quality service to the citizens of the city of Franklin and Southampton County during his tenure, Mr. Copeland continually displayed a cooperative spirit, was loyal and dependable, as well as willing teacher to his co-workers. And whereas Lee D. Copeland has provided guidance and exhibited wisdom through his position with the Community Development Department, and whereas his prudent judgment and warm personal demeanor have facilitated many accomplishments and have earned for him the respect of the community and his peers, and whereas the city of Franklin commends Lee D. Copeland for his generous and devoted service to this city and wishes him well in all his future endeavors. Now therefore be it resolved that the Franklin City Council honors the exceptional service of Lee D. Copeland, and be it also further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this meeting of the Franklin City Council as visible as evidence of the high esteem in which this council and the citizens of the city of Franklin hold Lee D. Copeland, thereby forever preserving and recording its gratitude. Adopted this date, February 26, 2018, and signed by Mayor Frank M. Rabel.
Thank you very much. Good job, Rick. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution in appreciation for Lee D. Copeland?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Thank you very much, Lee. If you would, we're going to reissue this plaque to you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you again.
We also had the departmental reports that came to us on the separate cover. Did anybody have any questions for the city manager or any department head as far as those reports were concerned? Okay. If not, we'll let them stand as presented. Thank you very much. Okay. Next, we have the two public hearings tonight. The first one's on the Charter Communication Cable Franchise Ordinance. So I would ask, would anybody like to speak on the Charter Communication Cable Franchise Ordinance? Would anybody like to speak on the Charter Communications Cable Franchise Ordinance? Would anyone like to speak on the Charter Communication Cable Franchise Ordinance? Okay. Mr. Martin, do you have anything you want to say on it?
Just that we do have a representative of Charter here tonight to answer any questions you may have. Mr. Eric Collins, he's their governmental liaison. But other than that, I would defer to the city attorney to comment on the proposed ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the audience, the Charter Communications currently operates a non-exclusive cable service company in the city. This franchise will allow Charter Communications to continue to construct, operate, and maintain within the streets of the city and in the established alleyways and such, all that's necessary to maintain and operate the cable system. The term of the franchise is going to be 10 years, and that will commence effective upon the date of adoption. There will be an opportunity for an automatic extension of additional 5 years, so the term of the franchise could be up to 15 years. As part of the franchise agreement and the terms of all cable franchise agreements, there will be maintained and advertised a toll-free telephone number for phone service to receive complaints and requests for repairs. Records will be kept of written complaints and received regarding interruptions and degradation of all services. All of that will be held for a period of 3 years, and if at some point the city feels that there needs to be a review of the services that are being offered, the city can give notice to the franchisee. There will be a meeting, the records will be turned over, and the city will have an opportunity to review the records and see if there needs to be some review of the complaints for service, interruptions, anything of that nature. And so the city will have an opportunity to follow up on complaints if there is a need. Charter will continue to provide the channels on the cable system for what we refer to as PEG, which is the public, the education and the government access programming. They will continue to provide cable service to city buildings. Anyone wishing to review an entire copy of the agreement can do so by appearing in the administration building. Let's see. In my review of the cable franchise, of course, I think it's fair to say that the cable franchise basically only impacts the service that we're receiving at this time. Many years ago, the cable franchise impacted the financial side, but with changes in federal and state law in 2006 and 2007, all of that got shifted over to the state, and so now the cable franchise fees that were previously collected by the city are now forwarded to the state, and then due to a formula, they come back to the city as revenue. The city does have a pole attachment agreement that is in existence with Charter. The pole attachment agreement will not be affected by the franchise, so that agreement will stay in place and the city will continue to receive revenue from the pole attachment agreement. If another, I guess the last thing I would like to say is that if another franchisee wanted to come into the city and applied for a franchise, the terms of a new franchise, if they are less burdensome, I think is the way the language reads, if the terms of the new agreement are less burdensome than the terms of the franchise that we are seeking to enter into with Charter, then Charter has an opportunity to amend its agreement so that its requirements are the same as any new franchisee coming into the city. But it is a non-exclusive agreement. Anybody that's a cable company that wanted to try to come into the city has the right to petition for a new franchise agreement. With that, I will see if there are any questions from city council members, and I'll be happy to try to answer or pass the question off to Mr. Collins.
Questions, please.
Basically, if broadband came in with a lesser rate than Charter,
Well, that's excuse me, Mr. Johnson, I cut across you. That is competition. So if another company comes in with a better rate, that's the kind of thing that assists our citizens by the citizens having the option to choose one over the other.
Okay.
So that would not impact the franchise agreement.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Other questions?
As far as our PEG channel goes, how many exactly do we have control over? And being public, educational, and government, what access does the public have to utilize the PEG channel?
We actually have two PEG channels. The PEG channels will carry what we put on them. So access is the same as, I guess, a television channel. I know our PEG channels quite often run in City Hall here. So, I think the access can be as much as time as we want to put on the channel and utilize as much of the time as we can put on programs.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, I would expect that to be in regards to the government programming and access. But I'm concerned with the public access. This station belongs to the people. So what is required in order for the people to have access to utilize putting programming on the PEG channel? Do they have to have permission from the city to use their own channel? And is it their channel, since it's the public, public, educational, and governmental?
At this time, Councilman McLemore, I don't think the city has any criteria for the public in terms of what it's going to put on the channel. We have not had anybody, to my knowledge, we have not had anybody make an inquiry as to programming that they would like to put on the PEG channel.
And if they were, they wouldn't be, I guess you could say, restricted from being able to put programming on the public
Well,
channel.
as I indicated, to my knowledge, there aren't any criteria that we have to address that situation. So I guess the answer to your question is, your statement is correct.
Thank you.
All right.
One comment, there are guidelines as to what can go on the channel in terms of you can't do advertising and solicitations, and there are some other limits beyond what the city has. I don't know if Mr. Collins can share any of those from the perspective of the way these set up, these PEG channels, but the city would have to develop some other policy. We have had requests to do some things on it that went beyond just like advertising an event or something like that. And yet at this point, we don't have any policies or procedures to allow for any public use other than through the uses the city has traditionally made of it. But that doesn't mean we couldn't, but we haven't researched that.
So if for instance, religious-based programming, as long as they are not soliciting.
I don't know about that one. That would be.
Who would know?
Well, that, again, we would have to research the rules and regulations on the uses of these, but there are criteria when these came out years ago that were established, and the FCC, I guess, gets involved in that. I don't know if Mr. Collins wants to help me out here.
Well, that's why I was hoping that I can get some insight from somebody.
Sure, and we can research it and bring that back. It won't affect the franchise, but.
Okay.
Eric Collins, Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's good to be with you tonight. I'd be glad to answer any questions about PEG channel. The FCC sets standards by which PEG channels are used for cable systems. Cable companies provide the channel bandwidth. When those channels are given to the cities and the municipalities and the county determines what the usage of those channels. Now, the FCC does set criteria by which what can be placed on a PEG channel. And those criteria are, like Mr. Martin said, is a criteria based on can there be no solicitation, anything that's going to drive revenue for business or any other purpose. It cannot be used for that. The PEG channel has to be operated within the bounds of what the FCC states they are, what they're to be used, and they have to be utilized for certain time frames and certain amount of time with non-repeat programming. So with that, those are the standards by which the FCC sets those guidelines. They're not set by charter. Charter We cannot, within the agreement, and no cable operator can control the content that's placed on that channel. It's strictly left up to the grantor.
And that, in this case, it would be the city,
That is correct.
okay? And, but the city can't restrict the public from using or having access to that channel as long as they meet certain criteria.
That's completely left up to the municipality. Remember, PEG means Public Educational and Government Access. So the two channels currently that's being used, I'm not speaking for the city here, but well, I think one is considered to be educational, but is not being utilized, and the other one is for government access. So if it's all determines of what the city and how the city sets those criteria and sets those guidelines, if they choose to do so. So I just can't speak to that.
Okay, I'm still kind of lost because I think that we underutilize our PEG stations, and I think that the public should have, we have 24-hour programming, and I understand we run our school boards on meetings, and we run our city council meetings along with events that are going on within the city. But I see an opportunity for our public to be able to offer, for lack of just using generic, cooking class, where they're not charging anything, they're just saying these are the recipes for cooking, or here's tips for how to plant indoor gardens, or whatever. And if a citizen, being part of the public, wanted to put that on, that would be, I don't see how that would be under the preview of the city has to give, allow them to do that.
Well, the city sets the policy, and we have to do it in compliance with the guidelines and
Well, as long-
regulations of the
but- and I think we
FSCC.
talked about the guidelines. They can't be for
Well,
solicitation purposes.
We don't have them here tonight. I'll be glad to research that, and we
Okay.
can give those back to the council, but that really doesn't affect
Okay.
and not relevant to the charter cable franchise,
Okay.
whatever we use them for, as long as it's compliant.
I'd just like to see the public have access, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Anybody else have any questions? Are you looking for us to have some type of action tonight to adopt this?
Yes, it's
Yes.
recommended, yes.
Okay. We have a recommendation, I think, to adopt a resolution granting a negotiated cable agreement with Charter Communications.
So move.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
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 And aye. That motion carries, so you have that authorization to handle.
Thank you.
Okay. The next is a public hearing on the Verizon property lease. Do you want to tee that up before we get into it, or?
Yes, sir, if I could, Mr. Mayor. I don't seem to have my public hearing notes. What's your public?
It's in here. I don't have a written copy. You find it? Here you go if you
It's
want.
right after the,
Yes, that's
it's right after Taylor's comments.
I've got mine ready if you want to look at it. I got it. You got it? Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a public hearing. It is being filed pursuant to Virginia Code Section 15.2, 1800, paragraph B. What we are looking at tonight is a proposed lease of land, and Virginia Code requires that if the city is going to consider a lease of land, then there has to be the public hearing. So this parcel of land is being requested by Verizon Wireless. It is a parcel that is 50 feet by 50 feet square, which contains 2,500 square feet. It is a portion of the property that's located on the north side of Fairview Drive that is owned by the city of Franklin. It's what we often refer to as the Rawls property. It runs from the little white house where Virginia Taylor last lived, all the way up past Crescent Drive to Old Sedley Road, and is adjacent to the YMCA property, and is behind the high school property. That is the larger parcel of land, but the square that is 50 by 50 is access off of Fairview Drive, a couple of 100 feet west of Mrs. Taylor's house. There's a dirt path that will take you up behind the baseball fields at the YMCA, and that would be the approximate location. With the square that is 50 by 50 comes a non-exclusive easement, 20 feet wide, for ingress and egress over that 20-foot wide dirt path. That would be used for access on a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, 365-day availability, so that if there's an issue with the equipment to be installed on the tower by Verizon, they will have access to it at any time. It will also be used for the installation and operation of the communications equipment. The lease calls for an initial term of 5 years. That 5 years will also have the right to be automatically extended for 4 additional 5-year terms, so the lease could go as long as 25 years. And I guess I will be happy to answer any questions that anyone has related to the lease in particular.
All right, do you want to entertain questions now, or do you want to open up the public hearing part of it, and then?
I'm sorry, let's open up the public hearing. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So we will open up the public hearing on the Verizon property lease. Would anyone like to speak on the Verizon property lease? Would anyone like to speak on the Verizon property lease? Going once, going twice, going the third time.
Quick question, it's a cell tower?
Yes.
That's it? All right. Just want to make sure I'm familiar.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak on the Verizon property lease? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Williams, now we can entertain any questions for you and/or somebody from Verizon if they're here, correct?
We do have a representative here from Verizon Wireless, Mr. Steve Romines.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any questions about the property lease for Verizon?
How much is the land lease for?
The rent begins at $14,400 per year. Then there's an escalator that calls for an increase each year by 2%. That will be a 2% increase until 25 years has passed.
14,000
Good.
a year. That's less than.
I would also point out other benefits for the city. One thing, and I have to offer kudos to Bruce Edwards and Deputy Chief Bob Porty for their work in assisting in the negotiation of the lease with Verizon. They negotiated a 10-foot space on the communications tower that would be utilized by the city free of charge to install city equipment that would help the city in overcoming some of its problems in terms of communication that have plagued the area for a while. So certainly that has a value that we can't really put money on. In addition, Verizon is going to offer space to third parties on this communications tower. They will receive the rents from the additional carriers that locate equipment on the tower. However, if there is a need for on the ground for a lessee to Verizon to establish a generator, store parts, things of that nature, in terms of operating their equipment. They will have to come to the city for a lease for whatever space they need on the ground, which would help the city's revenue again with a new land lease for whatever new tenant might try to locate on the Verizon tower. So that would be an additional source of income for the city.
So basically, that would be two separate leases, correct? One for the tower and one for the land.
I would say it's two separate types of leases, Councilman Johnson, because we could have as many ground leases as people that want to locate on the tower.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
What is the estimated start and completion date on this tower? Do we have that yet?
The contract speaks to a period of time during which Verizon has the opportunity to do its due diligence. They have to get permitting done. They have a right to do a environmental phase 1 and do soil borings to make sure that the area will support the tower. So there is no assigned start date. There is a 2-year period of time during which they have the right to accomplish all of those things, during which we will not receive rent, because obviously they aren't generating any source of revenue for themselves at that point. The tower has to be built, the equipment has to be installed, all of those things. So I would say for the first 2 years, I wouldn't expect that any revenue will be generated, and we will be going through the necessary steps to get the communications towers permitted.
Well, thank you, but I would encourage Mr. Romines, not that we're looking for the money, Mr. Romines, but we're looking for Verizon service for the people who don't have service, which seems to be a heck of a lot of people out in that area. So I would encourage you to please pass along to the powers that are that we need that thing sooner than later, please. Thank you very much.
On behalf of Mr. Romines, I would say that he has taken the first step because the city is the owner of the property. We have to designate Verizon with a special limited power of attorney to be able to address the permitting process with our Department of Community Development. And he's already handed me that and says, Mr. Williams, you need to help us get this signed up. So I think they're ready to get us started tomorrow morning.
And if I could elaborate further, I had a conversation with the Community Development Director, Donald Goodwin, who left earlier, with Mr. Copeland. He indicated to me that he's shooting for, I think they have to advertise a BZA, this requires BZA action to issue the permit, and they're shooting for the first week of April to have a meeting to approve it. And so that'll expedite that part of it. And then every indication, and Mr. Edwards might speak to this, every indication we've had is they are feeling a lot of pressure to build this as quickly as possible. Bruce, do you have anything to add from your conversations with those folks? You may want to come up and enlighten us if you got anything.
All I can tell you is that everybody I've talked to with Verizon has wanted to get this thing moving. So everything we can do to help them, whether it be speed along the zone meeting, as Mr. Williams is already doing, getting their paperwork, help them with their paperwork, the sooner we'll get better Verizon service out in the area.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, what is, when Verizon utilizes spaces on other people's towers, what is the average rental for Verizon to pay for tower space rental?
I think that is a totally different situation from what we have here. Verizon will own this tower.
Can I
Councilman.
have an answer to my question, please?
Well,
Yes, sir.
I do know that, go ahead, Mr. Romine.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor, members of City Council, for the record, my name's Steve Romine, local attorney for Verizon Wireless with an office at 999 Waterside Drive in Norfolk. Your question is about the master lease agreements we have with other carriers. On a national basis, Verizon has agreements with other carriers. The financial terms of those agreements, I'm not privy to, but I know a lot of times there may be, on a national basis, a couple hundred, a couple thousand towers, and T-Mobile may swap with Verizon, you know, where there's no money passing hands.
So I'm
you know.
thinking, I think maybe it was a little broad.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I'm sure Verizon utilizes other people's towers. In some cases, they lease space
Correct.
opposed to building their own tower
Correct.
everywhere.
That's correct.
So when they lease space from an existing tower, what is the average lease that revenue that they expend for leasing space?
It just all depends. I mean, I don't do the leasing, I do the zoning piece, but I will tell you that it's driven by the market. If you're in New York City on a spot that is the last spot on Park Avenue, you know, you're going to pay a whole lot of money. If you're in a less congested area where there's not as much demand. So the range of the monies paid for leasing is negotiated, and it runs the spectrum, Mr. McElmore. So I couldn't even generalize.
Because, and thank you,
Yeah.
and I appreciate honest answers.
Yeah.
There's sometime I just don't know is
Yeah.
an acceptable answer.
Right.
But the
welcome.
reason that I raised that question is because my concern is generating revenue for the city without getting it necessarily from our citizens. And I do recall us briefly discussing this, and maybe somebody can refresh my memory as to why we chose not to have a tower and lease space so that we were the landlords and we were collecting higher fees.
I can give you that. Cost, I did an analysis, but we estimated the cost to build our own tower at $300,000, and the debt service alone on that would be, depending on how long your term, could be as much as $73,000 to $47,000, depending on whether it's a 10 or 15-year term. We'd also be responsible for maintenance, cost of insurance, liability, and otherwise, and have to find tenants. So looking at that cost and the annual estimated cost to maintain it, comparing that with being able to get revenue of $14,000, be able to use the tower for what we would build the tower for, and given the nature of how these things change and how they are very astute at building these, already have all the contracts lined up and so forth, they can, one, do it quicker. And the net cost to us, even if we were, best case, able to rent all the space that you typically would, which is a long shot, you'd lose about $10,000 a year versus gaining 14 plus with a 2% escalator and avoid those operating costs. So that was a pretty easy one from an administrative standpoint to make the decision. Plus, the Verizon preference is to own it, and they made that very clear that in this scenario they wanted to own this tower.
Okay, I heard what you said, everything you said, but I didn't hear what is the revenue earning potential from a tower?
Well, it would not cover the debt service in our case for the term of the debt.
We discussed this as
Yeah, that's why I asked you
as
the
council. We discussed this as council.
So what did
and
we come up with, what we would be,
we came up with that it was in our best interest to
don't you
to
recall
lease.
the numbers?
Well, I can tell you, it's
Well, you were here. You
in
recall?
best case,
No.
we
It
would
was,
we would be $10,000 loss in the
See,
per
because,
year.
I mean, I'm not, you got some accountants up here, and my thing is, if we could have, if it cost us $300,000, you could do the math, how long.
I just did.
If we do it $14,000 a month, how long would it take us?
It's not a month, that's a year.
Well, because I'm looking at, we make it, and I do appreciate the deal that Mr. Edwards struck for us to get some free tower space for them putting up the tower. But I'm always looking for ways to generate revenue for the city without taking it from the citizens. And this would have been a method that we could have been getting paid by Verizon and opposed to just $160 a month or for this.
$14,000
No, I'm
a
talking
year.
about for the lease.
14,000 a year.
We're getting 14,000 a year, divide that by 12 months, so how much are we getting a month for the tower space?
$1,200.
$1,200 a month.
And the going rate to rent one that I've heard is like $1,100 is usually the max, or five. Mr. Edwards can add something to that.
Mr. McLemore, just to give you a little bit of information, we still have the opportunity to build a tower. We have other space away from this one. So if that's something that the council would like to explore, we can certainly do that. Typically, what is built is what's called a 4-carrier tower, and that means 4 people can go on that tower. So anywhere, depending on how high you are on the tower, is where your price is. If you're on the top, you pay the most. If you're lower down, you pay the least. And it averages between $750 and $1,200 a month. So, as Mr. Martinez says, you know, we would be $10,000 in the hole. I haven't done those numbers. I know this cost us maybe the cost of this public hearing, advertisement, and we get space on the tower and we get $14,000 a year. It's money in the taxpayer's pocket.
Yeah, the debt service for the citizens to pay, to put it in your vernacular, would be between $2,000 and $2,800 a month to build our own, and we'd have to solicit
Okay.
enough business
Okay.
from
I just
3
don't, I
vendors.
just don't recall us, I know we have discussed about this, but I don't recall us coming back, or you coming back with the actual numbers, and I still don't know what Verizon pays other people for tower space. I understand you said if you're at the top, you might pay $1,200. So if Verizon's paying $1,200 a month, and then say T-Mobile comes on there and they're paying $800 a month, we're at $2,000 a month, and somebody else comes in and they're paying $600 a month, and finally the low man is paying $400 a month, we're at $3,000 a month that we're making off a rental, okay?
But
And then we would have to pay off the cost of the tower and the debt service on the tower. But eventually, I would think that that tower would start rendering us profit through renting, which would be beneficial to the citizens. And from what I understand, and I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but from what I understand is we're not even going to get anything, or possibly anything, for the next 2 years while they do all of the studies and stuff. And why put up a tower? Why talking about putting up a tower now that Verizon is coming in with a tower? And I do want to see the tower so that we can have reception for the people out there. But I'm always concerned with why are we giving others opportunity to make money instead of the city?
Well, we
creating-
analyzed that, and that's why the recommendation is such as it is, but the earliest we felt we could get a tower built and what was put in the CIP was 2021. So by 2020 to 2021 is the earliest we could build, so we wouldn't be realizing any revenue. We'd be incurring debt to build it and going through all the approval processes and all the costs associated with that. The other point that Mr. Edwards is talking about is this is not the only one we need to meet all of our demand. We had looked at one on Delaware Road as a possibility of one we might want to build our own at some point for other telecommunication service, and that one could be, if we can't get a provider to build one there, that might be something we have to do on our own. But the math here just doesn't work well for us, since they're ready to go, ready to build it. And if we were going to build one, we'd build it on Delaware Road, from what I understand, and for the optimum benefit to the city, not here.
Right.
Even though we own the land
And-
at
and
both
I'm-
places.
I know they, in the contract, they've got 2 years, but all the indication I've got, I would be very surprised if it takes them more than 12 to 18 months to have a tower up.
I just think we should ask questions.
No, questions are good. Questions
I've
are
got
good.
2 questions for you. One is, why are they having the access coming off of Fairview? I know we have limited access off of Fairview.
It's an existing drive that's
It's the
there.
existing drive that's there? Okay, I just wanted to make sure about that.
They are going to
Use the
improve-
Honey House Drive?
They're going to improve that that road.
And it
Okay.
pretty much
So-
is where the field stops, so it's a natural
there along-
boundary
okay,
for it,
okay, I'm
and
fine
there's
with that.
drainage through there.
I'm fine, I just want to make sure that that was taken
Doesn't
place.
interfere with your farm lease or any of that stuff?
No, I specifically accepted the farm lease, the current farm lease and any future farm lease, so that's not impacted by the
pad or
tower
the
lease.
spot.
That was my second or third questions, thanks.
But-
The third question I had is that I know that underneath these cell towers is dead area, and it's close to the baseball field and the YMCA. Has that been taken into consideration?
Well,
That it
it's-
won't
it's
cause for a dead area right through there with the
dead
YMCA?
area. I'm sorry.
You talking about dead coverage area? We
Right
have-
below the tower.
Well, we have given Verizon all the information about where our bad areas are.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's gonna be a bad area, I don't know. That's
It's
not
my
something-
understanding, I don't know, because I'm not,
and
I can
I'm
barely
not a-
use my cell phone.
I'm not an RF engineer, but typically if you stand right underneath it, you're not gonna get as good a
Right.
coverage if you're 20 feet away.
Right.
But it isn't on the field, it's below it.
I know it's right,
and-
it's next to it. I just wanted to make
yeah.
sure that that had been taken into consideration.
Yeah, it's set a ways, we went out there and walked it, but it's a significant distance from the edge of the field.
Okay.
I'd say, 75 feet or
Something like
maybe
that.
100 feet.
And Verizon has done all kinds of topographical maps to show how it's going to improve their coverage. And knowing the hospital is there as well, I don't believe they would be
Yeah, the
putting it there
hospital
if
was
they
like a
didn't
little
think so.
further away. I was just worried because they said it was right at the edge of the field and it wasn't messing that area.
The very farthest back field that you can get to.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. What's the pleasure of council as far as this is concerned? I guess I can ask. Do it.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the lease as presented tonight.
I would second that.
Have a motion and a second to approve the land lease with Verizon. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
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 And aye, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Roman. Thank you, Bruce. Okay. All right, we have finished with the public hearings. We go into old and new business. We have the utility building billing discussion, which is continued from our meeting of 2/20/18. I would remind council that we do have some process to follow. If anybody has any comments, we will do what we have said we would do in the past and stay within our 2 minutes and 5-minute rebuttals if we would. Okay? All right. Anybody have anything to say? You know, go ahead.
Well, first thing I'd like to say is, I attempted to sign up for citizens' time to express my concerns, but you convinced me that you would allow me to say what I have to say from here, to keep from having to come down there. I was surprised that more people didn't sign up tonight to express their concerns. Perhaps you didn't know that you needed to sign up to speak. But I would like to thank the people. I see a lot of faces here that weren't here for the previous meetings, and some faces that were here for the last meetings. With that said, when we had the first meeting of the month, the citizens came out in outrage over the high utility bills. And we made an agreement, we amended the agenda to have a meeting right here, right then, right now, while we were all here. And we came up with suggestions as what can we do to help the people, because these bills were extremely high. And Mr. Martin made a recommendation, and then I made a recommendation, and then Mr. Cheatham made a recommendation. My recommendation was that we look at the average bill. First of all, it was supposed to be high because of the cold weather that we had. And that's understandable that they would be higher than normal because of the cold weather, but we felt as though they were out of line with normality. So was there anything we could do to help the people? And I recommended that we look at the citizens' average bill and over an annual basis, and then we tack on 15% to 20% for that amount, and to that amount, and that's what the person we pay, and then the city forgives the rest. And then Mr. Cheatham made his recommendation of a budget plan, and the people seem to be most receptive to the plan that I offered. But the council said, well, we can't do that without finding out what the numbers are. How much is it going to cost us to do that? And I was okay with that. We had a meeting on Tuesday, and we still didn't get the numbers that it would take to do that. And as I sit here tonight, I want to say that it is my opinion that we still do not, we have not had anybody give us any numbers how we can achieve that. I have been pushing for that. That's the only thing I've been pushing for. I was willing to accept a combination of my plan and Mr. Cheatham's plan so that we could have an immediate fix to help the citizens as well as a long-range fix to help the citizens. But it is my personal opinion that this council doesn't see it that way. So as my colleagues talk, we promised you tonight we would tell you what we were going to do. That's what we said we would do, and I hope that this council will give you a determination as to what they plan on doing for you, because this is an emergency for a lot of people now, not later on, but now. And I hope that this council will do something to help provide relief for the citizens. That's what I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McLemore. Anybody else have anything to say? Just a couple of points. I think we did receive something on the 21st of February, which was included in our meeting agenda that discussed what it would cost us, and we had that.
What did it, because
Well,
I
I
didn't
mean,
see that. I didn't see that. So would you tell the public what it said it's going to cost and where they can find it?
Well, it said and this is something that came to us in our minutes or our meeting notes to prepare for tonight, which typically we're supposed to read before we come here so we'll know, what they say and we can make some sense out of it. But it does say in here, and I mean, read it.
Open it up.
It says billing estimate of what, $713,666.37. The residential customer share of that would be $463,887.14, while other customer categories would share approximately $249,779.23. The average share for each residential customer would be $102.99 based on the customer's usage. And he went in and gave us some examples. So we can see what it would cost us, just on in looking at it. I think, excuse me, Mr. McLemore. I think for us to even pretend that we're not sympathetic and empathetic with what's going on would be erroneous. We have all wrestled with this and wrestled with it very hard. The equitable thing to do, obviously, is to take an amount and divide it by usage and give it to everybody, or give some type of credit. Well, the unfortunate thing is that, we're not in that business. The monies that we make from the electrical department offset your real estate taxes to about 25 cents. And you can say, well, if you raise our taxes 25 cents, it's not going to impact me because I rent. Well, guess what's going to happen to your rent? If we go up 25 cents, that's going to go up. We're trying to keep housing affordable. We've got to look at the big picture. We're looking at the whole thing. So, please, And I just want to make that statement. Does anybody else have anything? We've all got a chance. Mr. Burgess, I'm sorry, I think I may have interrupted you.
I was just going to say the ability to provide an equitable solution to this across the whole city is going to be next to impossible because everybody's situation is different. And the other thing is, this is the third time since 2013 that we've had high electric bills where we've had people come and ask us what we can do. And we haven't done anything before, and if we do it now, we're going to be setting a precedence that every time the high electric bills come along, we're going to be faced with this same issue. So I just don't see how we can make that precedence at this time. There's a whole bunch of other reasons that have been talked about in the past with reserve funds, but to me, those are the two biggest that I can see, that I just can't get past.
Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, can I speak again?
Please.
Mr.?
You should-
You ran the numbers, and we're not mentioning the fact that the city is holding close to $7 million of the citizens' money. We're not asking for you to give them anything except for some relief for the money that you're trying to take from the citizens. Now, we said it was an act of God, this cold weather. Well, when we had a flood, the federal government helped the city out and didn't ask for anything. And when we do the Madison Street grant program, the state is giving infrastructure money to the city and not asking for a thing back. All we're asking is, because it was an act of God, one time, we provide some relief for the citizens. And we do have enough funds in our accounts, collective accounts, to do that. Now, the numbers that you gave us, they did come from the same source that does not want to give back any money. So I can't trust numbers when I asked for specific numbers and I did not get them. I gave a list of 21 questions, and I haven't received an email with answers to those 21 questions in regards to what is the profit if we spent $1,400,000 to purchase the electricity. How much profit do we make off of that purchase? And it was guesstimated at $800,000. So if we make profit of $800,000 in 1 month, how is it really going to kill the citizens to be helped 1 month? These are the people that pay us to be here. So it's easy enough to say that we, we like to, we feel it, we care about the people. Well, if you care about the people, then for God's sakes, do something to help them, because we've got people out there in their 70s paying $600 light bills that are not on welfare. My time is up.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more comment, and then
Please.
in all that you just said, not one time did you say anything about the local government helping in a prior instance. And there's a reason for that, and that is that it's not good governmental strategy. They did not help, to my knowledge. I was a victim of the flood. To my knowledge, not $1 came to the business owners or to the people of Franklin from the local government. It was all federal and state money. It was all federal and state money.
That's what I said.
Okay, that's what you said. But now you're asking the local government to step in.
Because, yeah.
That is not
Exactly.
what it's not the purpose of the local government.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to
Just-
offer a motion, if you don't mind.
Well, please.
I move that we recertify the motion made at the last meeting to allow the bill to be paid in installments. It must be paid an amount equal to the previous month's bill.
Please, we're trying to conduct business. Please.
And then 4 subsequent payments. Must pay each month's bill current after that point. No interest or penalty would be assessed to those in this plan, and no cutoff for those in this plan. And it does not apply to balances that were prior to, I think it's the February bill we're discussing. I also would move that we immediately set up a fund for people to make donations for the funding to be used.
Please. I'm asking for you to please respect what we're trying to do up here. Please. Thank you very much.
What are you trying to do?
Said funding to be used for those who need assistance with paying their electric bills. And I move that we authorize and request the city manager to submit to us at the last meeting in March the cost to have an independent energy audit to include certifying the equal application of the appropriate rates and the accuracy of our equipment, with said funding to come from the electric fund and to be completed by the end of August.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Was everybody able to hear that motion?
Yes,
Excuse me,
We heard it.
did everybody hear the motion?
I have a substitute motion to that, basically.
Wait a second. No. Okay. No, ma'am. Okay.
And the substitute motion is the 4-month period of extending, because there are excessive bills. Some bills are higher than others, that we could get that extended further. As I asked Mr. Williams a question last meeting, and he gave me an answer this afternoon, basically, and that was about the malfeasant part of it. City can give money, but basically what would happen, taxes would go up immediately after that, basically, because you'd have to refund the money. So I was saying, basically, if we could extend that and work with customers, because we have customers with different situations, if more than four months, I would consider 6 to 8 months, basically doing that, if that's what we have to do as a council. And that would help individuals much better than 4. Because we're going to do the audit. We're going to do the audit to see if there's something wrong with the electrical system, and if so, we would basically give credit if there is. But we have the audit in motion to happen, but that won't happen immediately. So I was saying, that's my substitute motion.
Just for clarity, it's actually 5 months. It's this month plus 4 months. I just want to be sure. Currently, I just wanted to clarify that. It's actually a 5-month period.
I think Mr. Martin has the discretion to working with staff to work out.
With individual situations,
Right.
we already have some latitude.
So we've
there.
already got that in there. So if it does take longer in some situations, he does have that discretion, he and staff, and they've been using it. Discretion.
Right, I wanted to make sure that was
Yeah, I think
still in place, because we said until the 20th, well, until the next month, until the next meeting, so this is the next meeting. We want to make sure that's still in place and there is no penalties for that, and no one is
As long
cut
as
off.
people sign up and
Sign up
work
and
it-
you're
and work
working.
I don't think we need,
to
I
work
think,
things out.
I think from clarity standpoint, I think that's fine. I think we just need to make sure that that's all understood within that motion, if that's
Do I
okay.
need to change the wording? I'll be glad.
Uh,
to.
yeah.
I hope
can-
somebody
we can-
understands
we
what this
can-
motion is, because it's confusing to
We
me.
can change the wording.
About a minimum- about a-
Yes, we're still discussing.
About a minimum of 4 months.
Yeah, we'll discuss.
Well, you could just say
start
4
with-
months with the manager with discretion on
Mr.
individual
Mr.
cases.
Mr. Burtis, Mr.
Mr.
Cutchins.
Cost of audit to make sure everybody's residence is okay. That's a top priority. We all know that, correct? That's tops.
Correct.
That's number one. I'll backtrack up to what you said on donations. Give me a little insight on what you were talking about donations.
I think there are people in the community that will kick off a fund that will raise money to help people to pay their bills. Is it gonna be $100,000? I can't.
Please,
You're talking about something to subsidize maybe what somebody else does, like Social Security, whatever,
Yeah, be above and beyond that. And
to boost it, so to speak.
to boost it.
Okay.
It's Mr. Mayor,
wait a second.
What?
He's still,
such a program.
Yeah.
And you
Still
were
have-
also talking about 4 months.
I personally don't feel like 4 months is enough. I personally think we need a minimum of 6 months, 7 months. I would not want to see it go into the holiday season and put more stress on the household.
Right.
Okay?
I put a motion out there just to get
Yeah,
discussion.
we're out there
I'm
to-
not on any particular item.
I'm just piggyback off
Yep.
of what you're saying. I think it's good. I think there's a lot of ways that money could go into a fund to sow a seed. I know I would be willing.
I would be willing.
Anything I can do to help.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, maybe I'm hearing it differently, but it sounds like to me, the simple way to put it is you're still saying, pay me. And my thing is, we, as Mr. Burgess said, the federal government stepped in and helped us, state government stepped in and helped us, but never has the local government stepped in to help us. And it is the local government, it's the local government that has generated all the money that we got. You know, now Dominion gave us $500,000 to a credit. Why are we unwilling to share that $500,000 with the people?
Mr. Mayor,
You have-
we have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion. We're supposed to be discussing the motion, so you had another question?
We haven't gotten a second.
I have one more.
We don't
thing.
have a second,
I'd
Jay.
like to say one more thing. We know that we put in top priority to the cost of an audit to have audit done on everything, right? If there's anything wrong with equipment, people are going to be deserving refunds, which I'm not saying there's a problem, but if it is, we would all know.
That's right.
Okay?
That's the purpose.
That would be money coming back, not so much as a refund, but as money due to the people if it was a cause. Not saying it's a cause. My light bill was high too, but we got to start somewhere, and it's going to take time. If the city can find itself in next year's budget to set up a fund and put a seed into the fund that you're talking about, Councilman Burgess, I think it's awesome. People need help. We know that. It's a given.
Yeah.
And-
We're discussing.
Right, and-
So we're working on rewording the motion, and would like to put in, I agree with Councilman Bobby, and also the budget plan for long-term, because basically, I know we talked about that, we're gonna get that done as soon as possible, as soon as the software is in place to get that done for every citizen. And I would like to say with that, doing that publicly, that every citizen would be considered for the budget plan once that happens. Every citizen would be considered for the budget plan. And what that would do, similar to Suffolk, if your payment a month is $150 or $250, then you would pay that for 12 months, and then if you went over at the end of the year, you pay proper percentage of maybe 100 extra, or if you overpaid, you would get the 100 back to you.
Actually, if I can interject.
Yes.
I don't know who proposed it.
Yes.
It was actually on a 6-month interval, so that it didn't get carried away.
Okay.
It's based on your prior year average usage, plus whatever increase may be looked at in the future
Okay.
for that next year, added into it, and divided by 12, and that's what would be paid. And then that would be trued up every 6 months, maybe over, maybe under. And if it's under, then it gets credited to that next bill. So you do it every 6 months, so it doesn't get to be so onerous that you can't, or we're in the same situation.
Right, correct.
All right.
I follow you.
And the other thing that had come up, which you were a little late on and didn't hear, was that there was an opportunity with the new billing system for us to say to people, would you like to make a donation to the fund? Would you like to round it up? Would you like to pay an extra $5 into the fund, or $10 or whatever? And then that would help be paid in and be put in there to help people that need the help to make a month bill or something.
Okay. Yeah, well, you have, I think, a lot of people are doing that with Dominion in other areas. Suffolk, they are. But
They
it's
do
a-
it all over the
yeah,
country.
Yeah, but it's up to,
Right.
it's up to the client, the person who's paying.
Right, the person
to do
paying the
that.
bill. They
And
wanna
I
do
think
it.
some people are able to do that.
And many probably would do it.
Yes.
All right, we have a, do you want to
We still in discussion, unless you call for a
You've done
question.
you've done your
Oh,
two.
so, I mean, you interrupt when I'm talking. I just want to say that I hope that this is an excellent idea. For those who are recommending this fund, then I hope tomorrow, these people that need relief will come to you, Mr. Cutchins, and come to you, Mr. Burgess, and you can help them with their bills that they have now.
I think you,
Mr. McLemore, I said we were gonna start a fund, and I'm gonna put 2 months of my city pay into that. If you would like to join me, that'd be great.
You know
I didn't
what?
say they could come to my office and I'd pay their bill.
Right, Benny. Right, Benny.
Well, the thing is,
Yeah, Mr.
All right,
McLemore, you
all
gonna
right,
put
Mr.
into the
McLemore.
fund?
I would like to say one thing.
Okay.
Since he's called me out.
no, I just said.
No,
y'all
no,
talking
no,
about
no,
creating
since
a
you
fund.
called me
Please, you
out,
start.
I'm saying use the city money to help. I'm saying
Mr.
use the city
McLemore.
money to help the people.
Mr. McLemore, please.
I think my comment was I would be willing to do what I could to help if it meant go out here and support foundations to give.
Okay.
There are all
I don't think
alternatives.
nobody up here's got a money tree.
The city got one.
All right, that's enough. All right, you want to rescind your motion and make another one?
Well, can I just change the wording on it?
Change
I
the
think
word.
it's,
All right.
what's the
Listen.
pleasure of council as to what they want to use for the plan? I heard 6, 7,
At least 6 or 7
I'd
months.
say up to.
Or put it
up
in
to
a,
7?
Up
at
to,
least
Up
7.
to 7.
up to 7.
Up to 7.
Just think about that, though. That's going to carry us through the hot summer season, so just be mindful of that.
We are gonna have our audits done by then, I hope.
But that's not going to change. If their bills go back up in the summer months, they're going to have this payment plan. If it drags out that long, they're going to have another higher bill coming at the end of this period.
This is gonna be ongoing with the bills. I think everyone in here knows that.
Yeah.
Everybody is having a discussion.
Well, join us.
No, you said join us, thank you, because I think that no matter how you dress up something that is bad, it's still bad. You can put it in a wrapper that says it's a Mr. Goodbar, but that don't mean that's what's inside there. So I want, we need to do
Please.
something in regards to finding out if there are equipment problems. That needs to be happening immediately, which we are working on making that happen. I am a strong believer that there's something wrong. And I know the city don't want to be in a position, they had to refund the school $128,000. What we gonna do if we gotta refund all of y'all? You see, so I don't think the city really wants to find out that we have this problem. But I want y'all to know that we do care, and I feel like we can help the people if we choose to help the people, instead of these extensions that we're talking about. Because what happens to this lady out here when next month, which the bills are gonna come down some because we won't have that big cold spirit, they're gonna come down some, but she's still gonna have to go into a fixed income and put $100 or $200 along with her regular bill just to pay the monthly bill. And when she gets behind with that, what are we gonna do? Oh, well, you know, so I don't see how this helps the people, honestly.
Well, in my eyes, Mr. McLemore, I don't feel the majority of the people have the fund to go pull it from. I don't think they do.
They don't have the money, so where are they
That's my
gonna get
point.
it from under your plan? Are we gonna extend it 4 months, 6 months, when we can say the city takes the hit one time and help them all out?
Did you not hear what he proposed on trying to find help? Isn't that a start?
Okay.
What, as far as the charities?
Finding help. We don't have the answer as to where.
Let's get a motion.
I got a motion. I made my motion. I changed my motion to put that.
All right, how about restating it?
Yeah, just restate your
Would
motion.
would y'all please be quiet so we can hear the motion? Thank you.
Speaking to the mic.
Okay. You can read the whole thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I move that we recertify the motion made at the last meeting to allow the bill to be paid in installments. Must pay an amount equal to the previous month's bill and then a minimum of 7 subsequent payments. Must pay each month's bill current after this. No interest or penalty will be assessed to those in the plan and no cutoff for those in the plan. Does not apply to balances due prior to the February bill. So if you have an outstanding balance, you would not be eligible for the plan. And I move that we immediately set up a fund for people to make donations, said funding to be used for those who need assistance with paying their utility bills. And I move that we authorize and request the city manager to submit to us at the last meeting in March the cost to have an independent energy audit to include certifying the equal application of the appropriate rates and the accuracy of our equipment, with said funding to come from the electric fund to be completed by the end of August.
Okay. Everybody hear that motion?
Yes,
Is everybody okay with?
yes,
Okay. All right, I have a motion on the floor, and I have a second.
yes.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
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 Nay?
Aye.
And aye. Thank you very much. That motion carries.
Gotta start somewhere.
All right, we have the city manager's report. Mr. Martin?
Gotta start somewhere.
Only thing I have to add tonight,
Let's take a 5-minute recess to let everybody stay up here. 3 minutes to get everyone.
No, you're a puppet. Whatever he says, you do.
Well, we're in recess now.
Good to see you.
Grace, you got another one?
Oh, right there. Right. Oh, I don't know.
Take it easy.
I'm up until midnight.
How do you explain that? How do you explain that? You're right. How do you explain it? Here's my card.
How you doing?
It ain't right.
All right,
Not adding up.
I'm sorry?
we're gonna reconvene. We're gonna reconvene. Please come to order.
All we did was rent a rise. We didn't help them.
All right.
Oh, we can get a rest now because Randy been put people to sleep.
Mr. Johnson?
Let's go.
We're ready. Mr. Johnson?
You can get me.
All right. Hey,
If you run, you'll get reelected. See, you
All right.
keep saying that. You keep saying that.
Mr. Martin, we have the city manager's report, please.
Okay, just some reminders. On Wednesday of this week at 6 o'clock at the Workforce Development Center, we'll have a joint meeting with the County Board of Supervisors to discuss the utility study, latest steps, those reports are distributed to you tonight. To bring to that meeting, you previously received them by email, but we want to give you a hard copy. We also have some other reminders in there. We will be scheduling another joint session with the school board on the budget alone in March. I haven't heard yet from the school board when they'll be prepared to do that, but I would expect it to be later in March. And then we've had some budget work sessions on the calendar you approved that are just a reminder in the budget. And that's all I have tonight, Mr. Mayor and council.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask the city manager to make my report on the
Please.
business center because I was not able to attend?
Are you ready to do that now on the boards and commissions
Is that where we are?
when he opens that
Yeah.
up? Okay. All right, the business center, Chairman, Mr. Burgess had a conflict, so I attended that meeting. We had 3 new businesses approved for locating into the center. That was good news. We had a virtual client that's affiliated and working with us on a project for the youth that's going to become a virtual client on a temporary basis, as long as they're affiliated and working with the city on a project they're looking at for some enhancing our recreational facilities and programs. But they did approve 3 regular tenants, and those will be moving in the coming weeks, which helps the percentage that Mr. Burgess spoke about at the last meeting, trying to backfill some of the decline in square footage rentals. That'll help substantially. I'll defer any questions, try to answer them. Other than that, that's the report.
Okay, all right. Okay, anybody else have anything on boards and commissions
Yeah,
tonight?
I'll start off with the jail. The meeting was short. The items were that the share of the federals that we have are still maintaining at a good level, which helps with the overall cost. We also passed a policy to allow electronic meetings in certain circumstances. You had to have that on the books, a policy. It's a very restrictive policy that we passed, was that if for some reason we had a call meeting and one person wanted to be involved in that meeting but could not make it, they could phone in with the approval of the rest of the board to accept it. And we also discussed a new training academy, but at the present time, we're going to stay where we are, which is with the Hampton Roads. Also had HRPDC meeting. There was a motion, in fact, I made the motion to ask that the waters of the, off the coast to be excluded from gas and oil drilling. It's a motion I didn't think I would ever make, but I did. And primarily just because when you, as you look at it and it's being presented, it will mess up the shipping routes, it will mess up the Navy training, et cetera, and it will pretty much destroy our port, and we would end up losing aircraft carriers down to Florida, whose waters have been excluded from drilling. The other was a couple of things that I thought were pretty interesting. One was that there was a joint venture proposals of some folks that are looking places like Hampton, Newport News for part of them, Portsmouth, Norfolk, where they are landlocked and they have nothing to grow with. Maybe teaming up with places like us or Southampton County or whatever to help bring in more economics and businesses and stuff, and they would help fund some of the business. But then we would be on a revenue share type thing with them. And the other was the broadband, and that they're pushing for it to be for the large populations first. It's coming in, if they bring it into Virginia Beach, it looks like that's where it would probably start, even though if you read and listen to the federal government, they're talking about using it more for the rural areas first. But there's some people up in arms about that. Let's just put it that way at this moment. Then we had HRTPO. We have a new secretary, and I'm not sure. I don't think they've given us his name yet, have they, Rand? You've met him, I think, maybe, but.
No, I haven't.
Okay. And our HRT man, who's done a great job, is leaving. He is going to be taking over the, overseeing the work that's going to be doing with the new Hampton Roads Tunnel. And so we're losing him, and hopefully we'll get somebody as good, but it's going to be tough to replace him. And the other thing that they had, and they've tried it up in James County stuff, and it's know your number. And several of the cities are looking at assigning route and area numbers in case of emergency of your number one sector, and this is how you will leave town, to try to keep it, things moving along. And it was a pretty interesting conversation that the guy presented on that, and said it's really working well for them. So it's something that we may want to look into, and I can get more information on that.
Chief Holden, emergency preparedness would probably be interested in looking
Right.
at that.
Yeah, and actually, we had a discussion on that as part of the 58 discussion, because that's one of the
Did you?
justifications for it is the evacuation routes. It's a primary route designated, and it came up, what you just described at that meeting last week. We hosted that, by the way, last week.
And unless Mr. Johnson would like to add to the jail, or Mr. Martin would like to add to HRPDC and TPO, that's my report for the month.
Mr. Johnson, you have anything to add?
No, you're good. Yeah. No, thank you. No, I'm good.
Anybody else have anything?
The only thing I'd add is on the jail authority, I'm going to a budget committee meeting in the morning to try to keep that number as palatable as possible for the city.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say, for our citizens who remain, I want to thank you for sticking around even after the issue that brought you here. You stuck around because what we do here is all your business. And I know some of the things you might not understand, like some of the acronyms. The HRT stands for Hampton Roads Transportation. And if you would continue to come to your meetings and keep up with what we're doing, you need to watch us, because what we do affects you. So I just wanted to thank you guys for sticking around. You could have left like so many people. It's not very exciting, but the more you come, the more you learn, and you can keep up with what's going on in your government. And I just wanted to thank you for staying.
I want to reiterate, I thought we had a good joint meeting with the school board last week. I thought it was a very productive meeting. I give them kudos and applaud them for what they're doing. I think they're making some really good progress. So we thank the school and the school board for what they're doing. Also, just wanted to let the citizens know, those who are here or those that are watching, that we are going to be looking for volunteers to serve on a committee to help us develop a plan for the rental inspection program. So there will be, if anybody's interested, please see your ward representative or any one of us and say that you might be interested as we go forward, because we'll be trying to pull that together in the short term. Does anybody else have anything? I don't think we have any need for a closed session
I
tonight.
make a motion that we adjourn.
I have a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We're out of here. Thank you all very much.